I'll stay here for a few more days. It's so convenient at your place, declared my mother-in-law, who had shown up uninvited the day before. I froze, unsure of how to respond, while my husband smiled as if this was the most natural thing in the world. It would be nice if you stayed, Mom, he agreed. I guess you're right, I replied, though my dissatisfaction was clear. Little did I know, the consequences of her stay would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. My name is Paula Swift. I am 30 years old and work for a major shoe store. Actually, my position at the store is assistant manager. Originally, there was no system to have an assistant manager, but since the current manager was promoted to area manager, I suddenly became assistant manager because I had been with the company for a long time. I thought being an assistant manager would be easy, but it's a totally different story. Although my official position is assistant manager, I am a candidate for the next store manager. It is very difficult because the training and education I receive are for management level responsibilities. Since I'm so busy, even though I just got married, it's hard to find time to relax with my husband. Still, I am happy, because if I become a store manager, my income will increase and become more stable. I was even surprised when I saw my first paycheck as an assistant manager. Sitting in the living room, drinking coffee and looking at my paycheck, I thought about these things. My husband, Zane, is a company employee. He is also 30 years old, the same age as me. He doesn't usually work overtime, but as the end of the month approaches, he comes home late. Today was one of those days. I happened to get home early, so I started cooking dinner right away while waiting for the washing machine to finish the leftover laundry from yesterday. Zane used to eat out a lot before we got married, but since we started dating, he's always complimented my cooking, saying how much he likes it and how delicious it is. That's why I do my best to make meals he'll enjoy. As I was doing the house chores, the washing machine finished, and at the same time, the doorbell rang. I sighed as I went to check who it was. Oh, it's Thora, I muttered. My mother-in-law often visits without any prior notice. I'm coming, I said as I opened the door. Thora stood there looking slightly angry. What is the meaning of this? I'm your husband's family and you make me wait, she exclaimed. I'm sorry. I didn't hear the doorbell because the washing machine was signaling me that it finished, I explained. Oh my! Why are you doing laundry at this hour? She demanded. I had a lot of things to wash yesterday, I replied nervously. There's no need for excuses. So, is dinner ready? My mother-in-law continued. Yes, I made leftovers from yesterday and added a few new dishes, I answered. I see. I'll make sure they're what my son would love, she said, walking in. This was how Thora would often show up, eat dinner, stay for a while, and leave. Zane didn't seem to mind, but I honestly wished she wouldn't come unannounced. I wanted to tell her directly, but I didn't feel comfortable enough with her to do so. Oh, Thora, if you had called earlier, I could have prepared something special for the three of us, I said, trying to sound polite. I just wanted to see how you two live your lives together, she replied casually. Oh, and I brought a little side dish. That should be enough, right? Thank you, I said. Thora started eating the chicken stew I made, commenting on its taste, while also helping herself to the store-bought side dishes she had brought. Most of them were discounted items, and while I didn't mind the idea of discounted food, her choices were always questionable. Feeling stressed, I sent an SOS message to Zane, who had told me to reach out if I had any issues. Minutes later, Zane called, but Thora snatched my phone and answered it herself. When the call ended, she smiled and said, He suggested we all go out to eat together today. I felt disappointed that the meal I'd prepared wouldn't be eaten, but staying home alone with Thora was even more difficult. We went to the restaurant, and after waiting about 10 minutes, Zane arrived. You finished work early, his mother said. Well, my wife and my mom were waiting for me, so I did my best to finish quickly, Zane replied with a smile. My, what a good boy you are, my mother-in-law added, beaming. As I looked over the menu, Zane leaned over and whispered, I'm sorry about my mom. I smiled and replied, It's okay now that you're here. Thora, oblivious to our exchange, kept ordering more and more food. She never paid for anything whenever we ate out together. Watching her greediness, I couldn't help but lose my appetite. When we returned home after dinner, my mother-in-law asked, Is the mattress in the usual room? I was surprised that she was trying to spend the night as if it were her own home, but I didn't have enough energy left to argue. I laid out the mattress in the room Thora uses when she stays over and prepared a bath for her. In my mind, I told myself that tomorrow she would leave. Somehow, with my remaining strength, I got ready for bed. As I was lying on my back, Zane came into the bedroom. "I'm sorry for making you so exhausted because of my mom," he said, patting my head before lying down beside me. After that, I quickly took a bath and fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up to hear Thora say something unbelievable. "I'm planning to stay here for about 4 days because life here is so comfortable." I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I thought Zane would be just as shocked, but when I looked at him, he appeared happy. "Well, it would be good if you were here, Mom," he said. "It would reduce the burden of Paula's housework." "What do you think, Paula?" "You're right, I guess," I replied, though I was clearly unhappy. It no longer felt like my home where I could relax, because Thora decided to stay longer than expected. Initially, I believed it would only be 4 days, but each day dragged on endlessly. By the third day, I was completely drained, both mentally and physically, and even came down with a fever. I mustered the courage to ask Thora to leave, saying, "I don't want you to risk catching my cold." Thankfully, she agreed, and after she left, my health started to improve little by little. In difficult moments, I often found comfort in looking at the jewelry my late mother had left me. Those pieces always brought me a sense of peace and joy. She had passed away just before my wedding, leaving me a few pieces of jewelry with the words, "Keep these as a good luck charm." They made me feel safe, as if my mom were still with me. However, when I went to retrieve them one day, I noticed that some were missing. I immediately remembered being burglarized twice before marrying Zane. Fortunately, I wasn't home during those incidents, but money had been stolen. Because of those experiences, I had installed security cameras in several parts of the house, including the room where I kept the jewelry. I decided to check the footage. To my shock, the video revealed someone rummaging through the drawer where the jewelry was stored. Feeling uneasy, I called my dad for advice. Over the phone, my dad advised, "Start by addressing the issue of Thora showing up unannounced." Later that day, when Zane came home, he found me sitting in the dimly lit room. "Why are you sitting in the dark? Let me turn on the light," he said, flipping the switch. The sudden brightness stung my eyes, but I steeled myself and said, "Zane, ever since we got married, I've been uncomfortable with Thora coming over without notice." He shrugged dismissively. "She's family. What's the big deal?" he said, clearly uninterested. "I'm really tired. Can we talk about this later?" His indifference hit a nerve, and I couldn't hold back anymore. "My mom mattered too, didn't she? But if you keep dismissing my feelings, maybe we shouldn't be married at all," I said sharply. "Fine, let's get a divorce then," he snapped, clearly not expecting me to stand my ground. "Do you even realize that Thora's unannounced visits are the reason I got sick? She may be my mother-in-law, but she's still a stranger to me. Could you live with a stranger for days on end?" I demanded. Zane hesitated before finally agreeing to involve his parents in a discussion. When his parents arrived, I explained the situation. "Thora often comes over without notice and stays for several days, but there's more to this," I added, preparing to show them the footage. Before I could play the video, Cashton, my father-in-law, interrupted. "Thora, have you been spending a lot of time at their house recently?" he asked pointedly. Thora looked uncomfortable but admitted, "I was lonely at home and worried about my son." Cashton turned to me with a deeply apologetic expression. "I'm so sorry for not addressing this sooner. Thora won't trouble you anymore." "Please don't worry, Paula," he said sincerely. Feeling somewhat relieved, I played the footage. As soon as it showed Thora rifling through my drawer, Zane's face turned pale. "Mom!" he exclaimed, stunned. Thora panicked and tried to leave the room, but Cashton blocked her way. "What on earth were you doing?" he demanded. I'm sorry," Thora stammered. "I was lonely and didn't know what else to do." "That doesn't give you the right to invade someone's privacy or steal from them," I shouted, my frustration boiling over. "Paula, calm down," Zane interjected, attempting to de-escalate. "Maybe she just acted on impulse." I glared at him. "You can't keep making excuses for her, Zane. She stole something precious from me. And I can't just overlook that, I retorted firmly. This is theft, plain and simple. And Zane, your mother's actions are undeniable. After my words, my husband hesitated, unable to defend her any further. Cashton, breaking the tense silence, added, Paula, I deeply regret everything that's happened, especially Thora's theft. You shouldn't have to be part of a family that has wronged you like this. Please proceed with a divorce. I'll take Thora to the police once it's finalized. To my shock, he pulled divorce papers out of his bag. Cashton, are you sure about this? I asked, surprised. Yes, this needs to end, he said resolutely. Realizing there was no other way forward, I replied, I can't stay married to someone who doesn't support me as his wife and instead defends a criminal. Under Cashton's watchful eye, Zane and I signed the divorce papers. Tears streamed down Zane's face, though I couldn't tell if they were from regret or something else. Once these papers are filed, I'll take Thora to the police with the evidence, Cashton said firmly. Turning to Thora, he asked, What did you do with the stolen items? I sold them, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. How could you do such a thing? I said, my voice full of disbelief and anger. I'm sorry, Paula. I don't know what else to say, Zane muttered, unable to meet my eyes. What I want most is a genuine apology from Thora, but it seems she's unwilling to give one, I continued coldly. Cashton, shall we go file the papers? After filing for divorce, I left the house and stayed at my parents' place that night. The next day, I took the day off to pack my belongings while Zane was at work. 2 weeks later, the house we had purchased together was sold. A month later, Thora was convicted of theft. During the investigation, it came to light that she had sold the stolen jewelry to a friend at half its market value, which added fraud to her charges. The case made headlines in the local newspaper. Zane's parents' house became a target for public outrage, with graffiti labeling them as thieves and fraudsters. Reporters swarmed their home, and the neighborhood turned against them. When I heard about the turmoil, I asked my father to help Cashton, who had shown me kindness. To my surprise, my father said, I see potential in him. I'll hire him as my secretary and arrange housing to help him stay away from Zane. This decision gave me some peace of mind. Meanwhile, Zane faced harassment at work, where his colleagues labeled him the son of a criminal. In frustration, he lashed out, injuring several co-workers with scissors. Although his company initially supported him due to his good track record, they eventually transferred him to a tough subcontractor in the countryside. Struggling to adapt, Zane quit his job and returned to his parents' home, where he spent his days eating, sleeping, and playing video games. Reflecting on everything that happened, I came to see how much I had changed and how those challenges had pushed my life forward.